It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. And this Feedback Friday, my shirt is inappropriate because it's good vibes on Feedback Friday, but I love this shirt. First of all, it's purple. Second of all, it's freaking Evil Queen. So, and Maleficent and Cruella de Vil, and those are my girls because they make shit happen. Stories can't happen without villains. But it was overall a good vibes week, and that is good because, whenever you attempt to give people some hope, you never know how it's going to go. And the fact that people said about Monday's video that they were skeptical when they saw the title of the video, but then they're like, nope, this is good. And that, I mean, that is the thing. That is something I've learned along the way. And I'm glad I'm able to, somewhat pass it on to other people, that there's always evidence of good and there's always evidence of bad. And both are true. And if you are deep in confirmation bias, all you see is the bad. And I say, and it's not therapy, I don't believe in ignoring negatives. I say ignoring negatives isn't being positive. But if the negatives become overwhelming, that's time for a reset. And, I actually said to someone in the comments, like, oh my God, dude, like, what's going on? And he admitted he's in a bad place. And I mean, everything I've learned about prevention for, acts of despair that are permanent comes from first responders. I was fortunate enough to work with people who, are paramedics, firefighters, cops, so on and so forth. And they see shit. And every once in a while, something haunts you. And it's very difficult to predict what those things are. And if you don't have a system where you can talk to people and go, this is what I'm going through. Like, just state what is, not what you're afraid of, not, what you're jumping to conclusions as a protective gesture. Just say what is. That is the ultimate act of bravery. And I truly believe it pays off. And I mean, that's why I come on here and talk about, my experiences, knowing that people will twist it online. And it's easy to say, I don't care. That's not entirely true because I see people and I judge them for twisting the things I say. But the truth is, it's worth it. It's worth it to take these risks because, 10 people may shit on it, but one person will go, okay, you get it. And I'm going to listen to you. And now I have hope. And that is absolutely worth it. This is how we build towards better. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Let me do the help support this channel. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. We are 69% to the, recouping the cost of the laptop I had to buy. So thank you so much for that. That is greatly appreciated in another very, very expensive month. And those of you who've been around for like almost a year or more than a year, October of last year was terrible for me. And so I named it Fucktober. So I am trying to figure out what to do for the anniversary of Fucktober, in the theme of Deranged Opossum Fall. Opossums have become my thing. I have the stuffed opossum. I have the plastic opossum in the trash can. I have the tiny possum guide. Opossums are my thing. I freaking love them. One got eaten in Wednesday this season. I didn't like, but I love opossums. I love them. I love my trash cats. I guess it makes sense because I like cats because little assholes. But one of the things that I do off the internet, we started it last year as a Socks for the Homeless drive. It's called Socktoberfest. It's put on by 94.9 The Rock in Oshawa FM. And it's a clothing drive. And it started as just socks, but then it became used items. And then there's a bunch of talk about doing a bunch of new stuff this year. But that's happening on, oh my God, I should have had the date ready for this because I knew it was coming. And yet I'm terrible at self-promotion. Friday, October 17th is Oktoberfest. And so if anybody can, donate a new pair of socks to your local homeless, because socks are a big deal for the homeless community. They can lose toes to moisture if they don't have proper socks. Or you gently use clothing items, non-perishable food, or a cash donation. That's what I'm going to do to celebrate Fucktober. Because I'm one of those people who celebrates the shit that happens to me. Because I can honestly say, there are very few things that I haven't gone through. The joke I normally tell about it is inappropriate right now. Because I say, I haven't been killed yet. But other than that, I have been through pretty much everything a human being can go through that shit. And coming out the other side is, and that is the beauty of peer counseling. A lot of therapists do go into it because of their own experiences. That's true. There's a lot of therapists out there with ground truths. But, the detachment that is inherent to that process is different than peer counseling, which is people who have been through it, helping people through it. And the thing about it is that, and I know this is a cliche, but people in the comments were kind of complimentary about me talking about the shit I went through as a kid and the abuse that my biological father did. And they say, I admire your courage about talking about it. And I appreciate that comment. It's not courage at this point because it's at a point. And you know what? No, I'm not going to step away from that. Yes, the brave part is talking about it in a forum like this, knowing that, during Gamergate, people made up bullshit that I was raped by my uncle and I was a former stripper. And I mean, that was just made up. And one of the proudest moments of my life is, the Gamergate people were like, if you had been a stripper, I think you would have told us. And I said, yeah, that would have kind of helped my current brand. But I mean, I did do a pinup calendar. I did, art modeling, which involves some degree of nudity, but that particular job, I know and work with people who did it. I have never personally done it. But if I did, I would have said so, because part of my process is just, it happened. It's not good. It's not bad. It just happened. And my way of getting past the shame is to just be like, this happened. Just let's lay cards on the table. Is it still emotional at times? Sure, yeah, but of course it is. You're not going to be able to wall off your past experiences. And if I do anything, I set an example of somebody who is imperfect and has value. And part of that value is the imperfections. We talk about interesting characters in fiction and not having Mary Sue's in fiction and all that stuff. And yet people are held to the standard of perfection in real life, and it makes no fucking sense to me. I think that's why everybody pours everything into fiction. And maybe I'm a little fired up because, I played Death Stranding 2. I'm still farting around in Death Stranding 2 trying to platinum it. But the fact that, and I realized that it's not that I felt understood by the game. I feel like I understood the game. And I felt this connection to the creators of the game because there are many things about, philosophy that we share in common. And, okay, Hideo Kojima liked a few of my tweets back in the day and responded to me once. So he knows somewhat of who I am. But other than that, he has no freaking idea. And that's okay, because that's one of the things about the game, is you can just validate other people in the game, and they never meet you. I mean, Hobo with the Stick, whoever you are, I love your screen name. Right? There was a guy, there was like a truck in the middle of one of the beachy areas, and it was like Solid Snake something, and I'm like, I'm gonna light the fuck out of your truck, man, just because of your screen name, right? And I love how the game just encourages you to like, all right, that was cool, like, I just mash the freaking likes, because partially there is a perk you can get that matches you with people who give out a lot of likes. I'm like, I want to be a person people like strand with. So I'm like, so I'll give it like 200 likes because I'll mash the crap out of the touchpad. And it's just such a wonderful experience. And if other people want to play the game a completely different way, you are totally allowed to. And I could talk not just for hours, but for days about how amazing that game is. And now I'm playing Silksong, which is a very different experience. And going from like this AAA behemoth to, a legitimately very small studio. Nobody knows how big Team Cherry is, but the general consensus is it's small. And Silksong is frustrating, but it's pretty. And it's one of those games, I would never play Death Stranding with the sound off. Silksong, I actually play better with the sound off, and I'm not sure why. I was really stuck on Twitch last night, and then I gave it another spin later when I was waiting for my pizza that night to cook, and I turned the sound off. And I got through one of the sub-bosses that I was struggling with. There was not much of a payoff to that, which is a little disappointing. But at least I made some progress. And games like Silksong, games like Cuphead, they are a bit like life. Where you have to find ways to track your progress. I kept saying when I was struggling on Twitch on Tuesday that I know I am making progress. I see more of the map reveal. I am buying things. I know I am doing this, but it doesn't feel like I'm making progress. And just sort of admitting that to myself, recognizing I was having an emotional reaction because I don't know what I'm doing in that game. But, intellectually, it's like, yeah, okay, I'm progressing. This is the way this game is supposed to work. But I'm not feeling it in my soul. Both things are true. And I think that very hard games teach you this. And games like Silksong that are very hard games teach you this in a different way than games like Elden Ring, where you can grind and level up and then just go back to the boss, and eventually, the sort of leveling you've done will make the boss easier. There's not as much of that in Silksong. Some parts, you just have to throw yourself at it again and again and again and again and again, and just eventually get it. And a big part of the wisdom of life is knowing which scenarios in life are Elden Ring and which scenarios in life are Hollow Knight, Silksong. In that, is this something where you have to back away, build up, some collateral, so to speak, and then take another crack at it? Or is this one of these things where you just throw yourself at it again and again and again until you make it right? And I'm one of those people, maybe because, child of the 80s, played Battletoads, not Ninja Turtles game. I'm one of those people, my tendency is to just throw myself at something until it works. And I have had to learn the hard way that that's not always the right call. Sometimes, and I mean, one of the things that is hardest for me, because, silent treatments and being frozen out were punishments for me as a kid. One of the hardest things for me to deal with is when someone is just deliberately not talking to me for weeks. No, you will wait. And not only do I recognize that is something I struggle to deal with, but I am a person who either I believe something can be worked out, and so I work it out as soon as possible, or it's just not going to work out and we go our separate ways. I am not a silent treatment type of person. I am not I'm not talking to you type of person. And it's amazing how many people, this is something that happened to me this week, like, don't talk to me for months, and they pop back up, and I'm like, oh, you're talking to me again? And they're like, well, I thought you were mad at me. And I'm like, you stopped talking to me. What the fuck? And then I get all the explanations, and my brain just starts imagining a video game or something like that. Because that's the part where I'm like, no. My brain cells are not worth this. Especially when it's in text and it's very clear who didn't respond to who. I thought you were mad at me. Well, yeah, okay, but you still didn't talk to me for months or years. What the hell? It's where I grew up. I grew up in Jane Finch, which is kind of a notorious part of Toronto. And school was a bit of a war zone. And then home was a bit of a war zone. And the two things, I have a lot of faults. I recognize that people find me annoying. I do not believe I am annoying. This is something we talked about on Twitch. Maybe we'll get to that. But I am a lot. My mother didn't want me to be quiet, so she put me into, performing arts. And so they teach you, when you're nervous, speak louder. So now when I'm nervous, I speak louder, and some people find that obnoxious. And I mean, part of my job is to come out here and make content, and we have to do it, whether or not we feel like it. If it's real bad, yeah, you take a break, but you have to use that very sparingly, right? And I'm amazed how much I find myself, and I never thought I'd say this, giving the benefit of the doubt to people like Charlie Kirk. Because Charlie Kirk talked a lot in public. And I've seen the compilations of all the worst freaking things he said literally in his life. And I really expected them to be a lot more. And maybe it's the greatest hits. I mean, he was inconsistent in his views on gay people, or he had that Christian doublethink that I can't relate to, because to me, Leviticus is the Torah. It's the Tanakh. And you're allowed to call bullshit on certain commandments because you're supposed to argue with God. And we're coming up on Rosh Hashanah next week, and then we're doing Yom Kippur. It is the make or break. It is the fourth quarter of the Jewish year, right? Like, this is all the times where clean up anything that you don't feel great about, like you feel like you did wrong, because time's running out. And, I mean, Leviticus 18:22 is this passage that I've been struggling with since I was a teenager. And because it's it's an abomination be put to death, but it's very clearly a man who lies with a man as he would a woman. And I've always struggled with the fact that why does it only count to men? Why are my gay brothers the only ones singled out for this? Like, why is it not a problem with women? And the most reasonable historical explanation for it, which I do buy because there are other consistencies when you get into the New Testament, and Paul literally made up a word to, say don't do this with, basically it was about men having sex with 15-year-old boys who were old enough to be mentored, but not old enough to grow a beard, and so they use them as lady substitutes. Because other parts of the Bible and the Torah, the Torah is very clear when it's like, don't kill, don't murder. It's don't murder, not don't kill. That is a significant difference. Don't steal, don't covet. And the fact that I could make jokes. I won't, because people take it the wrong way. But the 10 Commandments and I'm like that. Yeah. And so when they're like, don't do this thing under any circumstances. So elsewhere in the Old Testament, when it's talking about sex, they talk about cleavage, right? In this case, it's don't lie with a man as you would a woman. The Bible doesn't say no fucking. The Bible, and I really think that if they could, they would be that blunt. But it doesn't say, guys, don't put your pee-pee in another guy's bum, right? It specifically says, don't lie with a man as you would a woman. And that specificity of speech matters to me, based on my study. And one of the things about Torah study is you're supposed to read it again and again and again and again. And it is amazing how your connection to this very, very old book changes as you move on with your life. It's a very interesting check-in with who you are. And the fascinating thing is I started studying this stuff really intently because of, marriage equality in the 90s. And I was outed in high school. A guy saw me kissing another girl and told everybody. And that, I am aware that part of the feelings with that are just locked away somewhere. I've not been able to access it. And I talked about Wednesday about being like, my dad beat me, and I can talk about that, but the feelings connected to being outed, a lot of those are still sealed away. And of course, now I'm not gay enough for many, many parts of the left. So you can't win. And that's the reality. You can't win. And I know Charlie Kirk felt differently about this passage. And these are the things, like, if I could have sat down with Charlie Kirk privately and just had a conversation, if I could sit down with Jordan Peterson privately and have a conversation, I would. When I did the one segment I ever did on Rebel News with Lauren Southern, my condition was, I want to go to lunch with you afterwards. And we did. And you know what? I got a sense of her as a person. And there is a lot to like. And, I like seeing people as people, not just performers, not just pundits, because it's more contextual. Do I have any interest in debating people on the Christian right in public? No, because it's performance. No one is willing to give any ground when there's people watching. It is straight up Jacques Lacan. It is gaze theory. Knowing you are being watched affects your behavior. And so when I started this channel, I had this wonderful MBA, shout out dude if you still watch this, who helped me model the channel of, do you want to do like game the algorithm or do you want to do slow growth? And I'm like, no, I do not want to game the algorithm. We'll go slow growth. And so that was a philosophy from the beginning. And I deliberately, after years of so much makeup, false eyelashes, tons, like hair, like on the late night show I used to do, oh my God, there was so much crap. I did fake tanner of all the things. I do not regret going on Night Calls Radio. I do not regret any of like the nudity or partial nudity I did. The fake tan, the spray tan, that I regret. Like, oh my God. But that was what you were expected to do at the time. But once I did not have to do it anymore, no joke, I made a fucking point of going, I just want to go back to being a nerd, please. I liked being an ugly fat nerd more than I liked being a dumb slut. So I'm going to go back to that. And that's what the people who insult me based on my looks don't get. This, the imperfection is bloody deliberate. Because it's one thing to tell people that they should be their authentic self. It's another thing entirely to do videos day after day with like Slimer, Mr. Fizzy from Sunset Overdrive, the Rabbids, Amoogle, Cthulhu, and Choo Choo Charles in my background behind me, among other things. Like, I am just letting it all hang out. And it's not like a body, which, when you're beaten as a kid, you detach from your body pretty easily. But you really guard the other parts of you. You guard your mind. You guard your right to have opinions about things. And so people who care very deeply about freedom of speech because that was their opinions were the only thing they had control over growing up, I hear you. And it is a challenge to thread the needle between not changing who you are and what you believe, just changing your approach in an evolutionary way to more accurately reflect your true self. That is different. That is not the same as being censored, because that's a choice. It's not, I can keep saying shit, every horrific thought that comes to my mind, and eat shit for it, and probably get a lot more drama views, but I don't want that. I would rather 20 people watch my videos and feel better watching them than rage bait 20,000 people. And that's a choice. And I own that. And everything I do is based on, I am trying to be useful. I am trying to be a better person today than I was yesterday. And I am trying to always be honest. Sensitive to other people's perspective, but honest about where I'm coming from. And because of that, I do not understand why people explode at me in the comments. That's not saying don't do it. That's saying I don't get it. I don't get why people who watch my content regularly just occasionally go off on me, accusing me of things that, if you stop and think about it at all, that's not what I'm about. But that's their own race to run. That's their own journey to take. And I'm kind of inspired by how well the content went this week. I was expecting it to go way worse. You know, it's not that it was perfect or anything like that. I just expected, it's one of those weeks I really expected to get raked across the coals and didn't. So that was nice. And like I said, I mean, everything's pre-recorded for next week already because it's the high holidays. So, I might not do a video for Yom Kippur. I'm not sure. I'm not that far ahead. But Monday and Tuesday and Wednesday of next week. This is one of those things where it starts at sundown and ends at sundown. So technically, I didn't have to do Monday, but I had an idea for it, so it did. But then Tuesday, yes, I did have to pre-record, and then, well, it's continuation of two women talking to the guy. And then Wednesday, I pre-recorded. Just because more and more, I used to find permission structures to work on the holidays because, hey, I need the money. But this year, I think it's more important to indulge in the ritual and take the wisdom it offers than to chase bucks. So, on that note, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. If you don't have any money, like and subscribe to this channel. This helps as well. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.